Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1210B, and today's date is February 21st, 2017, and the title of the episode is the Deep State Slowly Eliminating Russian Politicians? Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, there was a memo that was released on Tuesday by the Department of Homeland Security to direct agency employees to begin immediately implementing President Trump's executive orders on immigration and border security. One of the memos calls for the immediate construction of the wall along the Mexican border. The other memo declares that former President Obama's executive amnesty program, known as Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, is not to be affected by Trump's executive orders. The two memos were signed on Monday. And we can see that DHS officials said they wouldn't target otherwise law-abiding undocumented immigrants and don't plan roundups of illegal immigrants, and said their limited resources would still require a focus on those individuals who pose a public safety risk. And as we know, through Obama's illegal immigration, where he had people jumping over the border, they really weren't doing any type of vetting. They were putting them on buses, giving them working papers, bringing them to sanctuary cities, and they didn't know if this person was a criminal, if this person, had a record, did they have a disease, or anything like that. And now at this point, it looks like these executive orders are going to round up those individuals that are a threat to the public, which that's the whole purpose of immigration, is to have people stop at a certain point and say, okay, you want to live in this country? Well, let's do a little bit of a background check. Who are you? Why are you coming into this country? Oh, wait, you're running from the law in your country and you want to come into this country? Well, I'm sorry, you cannot. And we can see that a lot of people had a problem with this. But there were many more people out there who voted for Trump saying, something, we need a secure border. And this is what Trump is trying to do right now. He's trying to secure the border. We see Homeland Security right now. Their staff suddenly got locked out of their computer networks. And these are the individuals that are going to handle cybersecurity. Now, of course, there were rumors floating around, Russia's cyber attacking, they're hitting DHS. It turns out, it looks like it was a computer glitch. And it looks like people are able to log on now. And we can see that there were at least 4 DHS buildings that were affected, including some locations used by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And we see at this point that it looks like things are pretty much okay. Now, we see out in Sweden, where just days after the media mocked Trump for his allegations of major problems with Swedish migrant policies, it looks like Trump was vindicated because there was violence that broke out in Sweden. And we see right now that people were lighting cars on fire and people were running around throwing rocks at cops, injuring police officers, and these individuals were masked and they were looting stores and other things. Now, the mainstream media, so eager to mock Trump's error on Saturday, they really didn't report on this whatsoever. But we can see that there are major problems in certain areas. Now, Nigel Farage is out there, and he just dropped a truth bomb. And what he's saying is that the younger generation is screaming fascist have become the thing they loathe the most. Now, he offers his views on the current state of leftist delirium, pointing out how the younger generation have been hijacked by an agenda of the rich education system, indoctrinating them not only to espouse a certain ideology, but to become intolerant to opposing viewpoints. By definition, they've become the very thing they're working so terribly hard to defeat: fascists. We see that Assange is out there, and he is the founder of WikiLeaks, And he is saying that the corporate media, well, they are using weaponized text. He says when you read a newspaper article, you are reading a weaponized text that is designed to affect a person just like you, where the corporate media comes in and they spin the actual facts that is presented to them. And this is handed off to them normally from the CIA, the intel agencies. And they've been doing this for a very long time. And this is why when you read the corporate media, you read it and you say, okay, what's actually the story? What's going on here? And you can see that they never have facts. They never back it up. So they have to look to fact checkers. And that's the biggest thing, because they brought up the term fake news. And it didn't work out too well with them, because ever since they brought that up, people have been pointing out that, well, this article is fake, that's fake, what the corporate media is saying is fake, and of course Trump is out there just continually calling the corporate media fake news. But we have to look at the fake news checkers, and we need to go deep into what they're doing. And WND found that most of these fact-checking sites, well, they're run by a gamer, a leftist, Trump-hating feminist professor who specializes in fat studies, a sex and fetish blogger, a health industry worker, organizations with billionaire Democratic Party activists and donor, and another guy who went to extreme lengths to conceal his identity. Now we can look at some of the major ones like Snopes. Snopes.com, a website that's been around since 1995, is sometimes cited by other fact-checking sites to support their claims. Facebook has indicated its plans to use Snopes as one of its fact-checkers to check on fake news. And WND revealed that the site admits it has no standard procedure for fact-checking. Now, one of Snopes' leading fact-checkers is a former sex and fetish blogger who described her routine as smoking pot and posting to Snopes.com. And right now the company is now embroiled in a legal dispute between its former married founders that includes accusations the CEOs used company money for prostitution, for prostitutes. Now, the Daily Mail of London reported one of Snopes.com's main fact-checkers, Kim LaCapria, well, she is a former sex blogger who called herself Vice Vixen. And what we're seeing right now is that this fact-checking site receives a lot of information from the CIA, and they're part of the establishment. PolitiFact was also identified by Facebook as one of the sites that the social media platform would use to label fake news stories. Now, when we look at this, we can see that, well, once again, there are problems. There's a pattern. If you look at Trump, where they have false or mostly false or pants on fire, they do this about 77% of the time. When it comes to Clinton, they only do it 26% of the time. Now, if we go further into this, one of the largest contributors is a Clinton donor. His name is Alberto Iberguen, president and CEO of Knight Foundation. He contributed around $200,000 to the 8th annual Clinton Global Initiative, which is now closed. And the Knight Foundation also donated between $10,000 and $25,000 to the Clinton Foundation. And we can see right now that, again, this is backed up by certain individuals. FactCheck.org was launched by the Annenberg Public Policy Center at the University of Pennsylvania, which was founded by Walter and Lenore Annenberg, friends of former President Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan. Now, the FactCheck.org receives a large amount of their funding from the Annenberg Foundation, which funds a number of nonprofits. The foundation funded the Chicago Annenberg Challenge to the tune of $49.2 million, and in 1995, Barack Obama was a founding member of the Chicago Annenberg Challenge. He remained on the board until 2001, because the challenge was phased out. The Chicago Annenberg Challenge was the brainchild of Weather Underground terrorist group co-founded by Bill Ayers. A review board minutes and records show Obama crossed paths repeatedly with Ayers at board meetings of the Annenberg Challenge project. And we can see that the group poured more than $100 million into the hands of the community organizers and radical education activists. So when we look at just these fact-checking sites, well, they're all connected. One way to Obama or Clinton. And they all have the same thing in common. Many of the news stories, many of the facts that they're checking come from the CIA, the intelligence agencies. And this is why they're using these fact-checking sites. What they did was they developed these sites to make it look like, yes, our stories are true. Now, Russia is making many deals with different countries within the Middle East. We see Russia and Turkey, well, they've been working together right now to remove the Islamic State. And it looks like Turkey is moving closer and closer to Russia, which, again, the United States government central bankers do not like. I should really say the intelligence agencies, the neocons, the deep state, they don't like this. And we see that Russia and Turkey, they are negotiating a deal concerning purchases of the S-400 Triumph missile system. The negotiations are underway right now. The question of financing is being discussed right now of how they're going to purchase these. And by the way, when they do purchase these, they will be bypassing the dollar completely. We see that Russia is considering Iraq's request for new arms to help fight against the Islamic State. And the Russian-Iraqi military technical cooperation is developing quite effectively. Russia provides considerable support and assistance to Iraq in the fight against the Islamic State. And we see that last summer, Russia supplied Iraq with a new batch of Mi-28NE Night Hunter military helicopters. And at this point, Iraq is looking to get more of these type of weapons, and they want Russia to assist to help with the fight against the Islamic State because they're doing such a great job in Syria. We see right now that the U.S. forces, well, they are moving closer and closer to the front lines in Iraq, even though Obama at the time promised that there were going to be no boots on the ground. But we do see at this point there's a lot of soldiers in Iraq with the coalition forces, and they are moving closer and closer to the front lines. Now, we are getting reports that once Mosul is completely captured, the coalition forces are going to remain in this area. We see that the CIA-backed aid for the moderate rebels, well, that has been frozen right now. And we can see right now the rebel official said that no official explanation has been given for the move this month, showing that they're not being paid a salary, they're not getting training, they're not getting ammunition, and they're not getting all the things that they need. Everything was just stopped. And the freeze right now reflects the trouble facing the Free Syrian Army. Basically, the intelligence agencies realize that at this point, they cannot remove Assad. There's no reason to keep this up. And they're probably pulling back at this time because they realize that Trump is really not with them on this. And they don't want to be found out. This is why they had this mop-up operation in Iraq and Syria, going into the Islamic State areas and just taking whatever they have so they wouldn't be found out. Now, the rebels are on the verge of surrendering in two important suburbs in East Damascus. And we can see that the rebels, the moderate rebels, they agreed to concede, and they will be transported to Idlib Governorate. And this is where they're bringing all the moderate rebels. We see that things are just completely falling apart in Syria right now because the president is not behind the removal of Assad. Now, once again, there are those people in his administration who are part of the elite, part of the deep state, part of the central bank, part of the entire system of neocons who want this war. Now, we see many mixed messages coming out of the administration. Pence is completely opposite of Trump right now. We can see that there are many other individuals in his administration that are not following his plan where he wants peace with Russia. He wants to get rid of the terrorist group, the Islamic State. What really needs to be done at this point is that Trump has to come up to speed on what's really going on. Who are the Islamic State? Where do they come from? Who pays them? Who supplies them with weapons? What are we really doing in Syria and all these other countries? And once he gets a grip on what is happening right now, decisions will be made easier to deal with. Now, does it mean it's going to be easier with the deep state, the central bankers? No. But he can look at the situation and say, okay, we're in Syria, we support the terrorist groups, and there's no reason to get rid of them or fight them. Let's cut out the funding. We cut out the funding, guess what? They're done for. They just can't operate. If we work with Russia and we go after them, guess what? The terrorists completely disappear. And it seems at this point, he needs to get rid of those individuals in his administration that are feeding him all this type of information. And he needs to really look at what's going on in these areas and what's been happening and what the agenda has been. Now, we know that the central bankers, the deep state, they are pushing and provoking Russia. Now, very interestingly, we know that Churkin, well, he just passed away. But beginning in 2015, there were several deaths within the Russian diplomatic corps, and we can see that this is very odd and strange. First, there was Russia's RT founder and special advisor to President Putin, Mikhail Lesin. He died in November of 2015 in his hotel room. He died of a blunt head trauma. Now they blame this on drinking, where he fell and he hit his head. Well, usually this is one of the excuses they use when wet work has been done and it was a planned killing. Earlier last month, Andrei Malinin, a senior Russian diplomat to Greece, was found dead in his bathroom. The causes of death remain unknown. Russia's ambassador to India, Alexander Katikin, well, he died of a heart attack, although no one was aware of any previous health issues. Russia's ambassador to Turkey was assassinated by a lone gunman in an art gallery, caught on video. Shot him multiple times in the back. And then we have Vitaly Churkin, is the highest profile member of Russia's diplomatic corps to die in the recent years. Now, what are the motives? Why do they want this? Well, it looks like they are getting rid of these individuals. They're provoking Russia, and these are high-profile targets. Remember, back in December 31st of 2016, Churkin's resolution on a ceasefire in Syria passed in the UN Security Council after months of deadlock, and the resolution is still in force. So anyone who wanted to derail the diplomatic successes that the aforementioned men achieved for Russia would have a clear motive to extract vengeance. Now, we can see that all the deaths took place on foreign soil. Now, the question is this just a coincidence? Or was this done on purpose to provoke Russia and to send a message? Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.